The pressure immediately on at Carlton as Michael Voss disavows the past and pledges to bring on the future.
A crucial night for the Brisbane Lions as they try to limit the fallout from their season opener with 2 cases before the tribunal.
And Merrett returns to the desk after the tumult of a failed trade request and in prospect of 90,000 at the MCG on Friday night.
I said to the players today, can you help me? I'm on 360 tonight.
Are you aware of that conversation?
Yeah, I don't live under a rock.
The reality is now that the gloves are off, ball's fair and love more.
My job is pretty clear. Make Hawthorn win.
Wouldn't be very good at hide and seek, Mitch, I reckon. Marco Polo. Polo! Marco! I can't have that. What do you want us to play worse?
When you caught my eye and Mustang.
I reckon it's just about the greatest prize that's ever happened in footy.
Nurse had a look at it, she said, there's a dent in that cup. And I had a bit of a look and sure enough there is.
There is breaking news this Tuesday night with Mitch Cleary revealing that Hawthorn pair Dylan Moore and Connor McDonald spent a night in an Arizona lockup after being arrested late last year when drunken hijinks fell the wrong side of the law. There are trespassing charges that are still pending to be heard later this year, and it cost Moore the vice-captaincy at the Hawks. What are your first thoughts, Garry Lyon?
How are you, Gerard? Rookie mistake, I'd say, from a footy club that gets most things right. This was needed to be addressed first night back of pre-season, post-Christmas. Put them both up in front of the media, explain what happened. These 2 knuckleheads have done this. He's going to lose the vice-captaincy as a result of it, which is serious enough. And they've got 6 weeks to win back some respect. To think they can hide it or hold it back. So here we are on the eve of a big Friday night game, having dropped their first game, and the news comes out and we've got to deal with it. So had they done that, the Australian Open takes the headlines, they go off and get training and we don't worry about it. And look, it's not a hanging offence, but they've made it blue and bad blue, and Hawthorn have exacerbated it by trying to keep it quiet. Rookie error.
So Will Day is part of our players' night tonight. So he's pretty tight with Dylan Moore, so we'll get Will's thoughts. He's alongside Merrett. Have you got your laundry list for Ray Chamberlain?
I have indeed. I've got many, many things I need to talk to Ray about.
All right, let's get into it. Top of the agenda, Carlton was destined to live 2026 in the pressure cooker, and it has come early. All would have hoped for a stay of proceedings longer than round 1. But for all sorts of reasons, Michael Voss is fielding the questions in the build-up to Thursday night against the Tigers.
And the Swans make a statement to kick off the season in 2026.
We're beginning again. That's what you do need to know. So I'll be pretty strong on that through these conversations and anything that I talk with the players. So I don't spend a hell of a lot of time focusing or sharing what others say about us. What I do is reinforce the behaviours we need. When things get tough, we stick together. So that's what we'll do.
It broke down the system and it broke down efforts.
Are they trying to play a style that just doesn't suit this group?
It's going to be, I think, a difficult year for the Blues and Michael Voss.
They've got some real problems. And this group's not doing it.
You expect us to be able to fight better than that. So we let ourselves down on that. I'd imagine we're going to have some imperfection in that in early days. There may be moments of break, but at those particular times what we do expect is that we stick together as a footy team, and it might not look perfect, but we've got to fight more through those moments. And we want to get our first win on the board in front of our home crowd.
It does serve to demonstrate that he is going to coach under the most ferocious pressure that only winning can relieve.
Yeah, and then the thing that they need to look at is they've got a magnificent opportunity to do exactly that and right a few wrongs from last year in the process on Thursday night. I did the one-on-one with Vossy. We all did, different coaches. And one of the things he said at the Best and Fairest, which he alluded to today in his presser, was that we culturally defeat ourselves. And I asked him about it. I was really interested about that. And then he threw this up as a classic example from within. They have started, not started to implode, but they've made issues for themselves after one game of footy. It's incredible that we're sitting here and we're going as deep as we are on a game of footy that, I don't know, not many people expected them to win in the first place, as you rightly pointed out last night.
So I think it was instructive on the Doherty rant, which never should have been made public, but there it is to be dissected, that he did defer to the culturally defeated. At the first sign of trouble, he's had a group that shrinks. or fractures. And part of the task of the off-season, so it's clear that there are two levels of change. One was, well, the first thing was personnel, and then there's style and character. And in what's happened in the changes in the environment, they'll hope that the negative influences have been weeded out and that those who remain will be more resilient and more united when the challenges come.
Yeah, so are you looking upon Sam Doherty as someone from within or from someone on the outside?
So now on the outside, but there was no misreading what Voss said. There was clearly a core of players within the locker room that would go into a tailspin or fracture or whatever that dynamic is that broke the unity and the resilience of the group. And there are players who have left. And that was the only way to read what Voss has said. So he simply wasn't copying what was coming. His Doherty's a respected figure across the football world, but you didn't have to read too far behind the lines to suggest that he and Curnow and that were probably negative forces within the environment.
Well, I think that's an accurate description of it. And now we need to say, OK, you've replaced them. Have you replaced them with the right type? And it's way too early to pass the judgment. So, yes, I think it's interesting that those comments were made about players that held positions of great significance. And I think Charlie Curnow is one of those as well. I think that's been clearly stated over the off-season from those in the know. So now we've got to see whether the replacements are made of the right stuff. Yeah. And that's the challenge for Thursday night.
And Voss's job hinges on whether he can bring the next wave through.
Yeah.
Style-wise and culture.
And he does it with a background of this Craig McRae story that's real or not, and the question marks that they raise. I don't think Michael Voss would look at that really pragmatically. I think I don't know whether they're real or not, but if before they recommitted to Michael, they wanted to have a look around because they had some doubts, and clearly they did. Otherwise, they would have knocked it on the head really early. And if they had a look around and they posed the question to Craig McRae and he said no, well, I don't think that's going to upset Vossi. What would upset him is if they reappointed him and then went to Craig McRae. Yeah. So the timing of that is the only interesting thing for me.
And how does he win the next contract? Because this is not a team that's set up to win right now. So what are the parameters that have been put in place? He spoke about the team in round 1 would be different to the one in round 6 and round 15 and the progress that he had to show with this team along the way.
Yeah, well, he puts his faith in Graham Wright now, and to be able to read the list and read what they're capable of and to not knee-jerk on the back of getting blown out of the water by a side that is much better suited, as we said last night, to the way footy's playing. Now, there are Carlton fans who will say, well, no, we're not standing for that. And that's OK. I don't reckon Michael Voss is either, but the reality is there's a chasm between those two teams. Not on Thursday night, there's not. So that's when the pressure and the heat will really come, and that's a great thing. That's a fantastic thing that they go out. I'd rather they go out and play Richmond than they have to front up to Brisbane.
Yeah. Win their next 3. Richmond, Melbourne and North Melbourne, and just quiet the horses for the time being.
Yep.
See how deep into the season you can get. Tribunal is sitting tonight, and it's huge for the Brisbane Lions, who lost no admirers in their defeat to the Bulldogs, but they lost plenty of players along the way. How many is to be determined before the jury tonight. David Zita watches all of these cases for us. David, welcome.
Hi, Gerard. Hi, Garry.
Darcy Gardner was first up. How's he fared?
He hasn't fared well. He will miss this week's game against the Swans. The one-match ban for striking has been upheld. Now, the Lions tried to have a twofold argument, as we've seen so often with so many of these cases over the journey. They argued this wasn't a strike and that if it was low impact at most rather than medium impact, which saw the one-match ban given. So this was where this ended up sitting, this case, and that when either of those fronts would have seen that he was able to play, but ultimately the AFL said that Gardner had full vision of Aaron Norton taking the mark. He left the ground anyway. He made contact. A reasonable player would have realised any attempt to spoil it was unrealistic in the circumstances. Adrian Anderson represented the Brisbane Lions in this case. He said that the two reasons this wasn't a strike there were twofold. But ultimately, the AFL tribunal found that this was more than negligible impact. It was a strike and that it was inherently dangerous. To strike a player, this verdict just came through a short time ago, to strike a player with your forearm, elbow or tricep region when running towards him and jumping at him when he has no real ability to protect himself has an obvious potential to cause injury. It's inherently dangerous. The guidelines allow careless strikes to be upgraded to medium impact, and they find that the charge was commensurate with the nature and extent of the risk of injury involved. So that's where it was. And as I said, Adrian Henderson tried to argue impact was no more than negligible and that it was a double-handed push. Both of those cases, arguments unsuccessful, and Harris Andrews now fronting the tribunal too.
So the potential to cause injury was overturned last week but upheld tonight, the dark arts of the tribunal. What say you?
I put it in the Zach Bailey category. Stupid and unnecessary, and you got no one else to blame but yourself. You didn't have to do that. Darcy didn't have to do that at all. The mark was taken. He puts himself in that position and now he's going to miss a week, so not surprised.
The much more interesting case is Harris Andrews, which has just begun, David.
Yeah, it is. So the AFL, the Brisbane Lions, are arguing via Adrian Anderson once more that this was a shepherd rather than any reportable offence, and that he should be free to play. If not, this is the intriguing part I think you mentioned, Gerard. There is a new provision this year that's come into the tribunal guidelines. It effectively allows Michael Christian to scale impact down. Previously, he could only scale up. So when there was a concussion, he was virtually handcuffed. He had to grade it as a reportable offence if it was as severe impact. Now he has the ability to downgrade it as a result of these new guidelines. And I think what is happening now are clubs are going to try and reverse engineer this at the tribunal and say, well, you may have graded this as severe impact, but we're saying, given that provision, it should be able to be downgraded to high impact, medium impact, even low impact. So the observable level of force is what's mentioned in the guidelines. We don't really have a clear understanding of what that is, and I think cases like these ones tonight are going to give us a clear idea of what it actually means. And so the tribunal are going to have to work through this. This is the first of its kind in regards to this case, but as it stands, he's missing the next 3 matches, but they are going to try and get that overturned as a main argument, but as a secondary argument, they want to try and get impact downgraded, which would reduce the number of matches that Harris Andrews misses.
Shepherd rather than a strike feels like a reach to me.
Yeah, you shepherd and you get someone in the head and knock him out, you're looking at 3 weeks. So good luck arguing that. And as for level of impact, go and ask Garry. He's not playing next week. He's been concussed and, I think they're up against it.
Yeah, I doubt that this is the threshold, but we simply don't know yet. It's a really abstract idea. I doubt this is the one.
I get why they're trying.
About. Yeah, I think clubs will try through the first 6 or 8 weeks just to find where the level is. Because if the Lions are without all of these players going to face the Swans at the SCG, and they are, is Harris Andrews going to be suspended, I think, just a matter of weeks. It's 4 missing from the team that went under on Saturday night.
And big names and influential players as well coming up against the Sydney team who've got Charlie with a head of steam up and Joel Amati in reasonable nick and Logan McDonald hanging around. So, no, this is untimely. What about a week? A week ago they were cruising and preparing beautifully.
Everyone else was playing for second.
For 3 in a row, and now they're going to Sydney staring down the barrel of Zip and 2 with their captain and all Australians missing.
Yeah. Let me ask you about Origin. So a lot of the old arguments, so there was a glow, an unquestionable glow in the aftermath of it, and that reinforcement that this should be part of our footy landscape. And just that has dulled a little in the aftermath with the full injury toll being revealed, and some of the arguments that led to the original fall of Origin being re-aired, and a couple of those we heard last night.
It's really challenging when we're preparing for round 0 to have our players 3 to 4 weeks out playing the fastest game that's probably ever been recorded on GPS. They just weren't ready for it, and we probably saw the outcome of that. With some players that weren't quite ready for AFL come round 0. We can't compromise our season for a game that, although important, is not ready to be played at that time.
There's certain players that are filthy.
Yeah.
With the game time.
Yeah.
You can put that on the table. Absolutely.
20% more than they were supposed to.
Promised a certain amount of game time and they weren't.
So you're in the inner sanctum here with the conversations with the players. Give us your insights.
I'll deal with the Geordie one. This experience was a really special one, Gerard. To a man, this group came out of it and just said it was one of the best things I've ever done. To a man. So I'm not sure what that means. That is counter to everything that we experienced. And no one was filthy. Actually, Toby Green was filthy that he didn't get to play more. And Zach Merrett was probably filthy he didn't get to play in the midfield. They were filthy when they came off the ground. I don't know. Maybe that was the speed of the game that caught them by surprise. And I think that's real. So what Damien... We need to continue to foster it. We need the club's support in all of this. And the Origin side of things, want to make sure that this is, we don't want to see this, but this is what happens in footy games. Dacos and Richards and Bontempelli and Green and Collins and Anderson, they all thrived. Some didn't. That's just what footy is at this stage. But this is not going to turn around its head. You won't turn this around on its head because The players drove this, and the players will demand that they get another opportunity. That's how successful it was. Don't bother talking to me. Talk to Zach Merrett when he comes in or anyone else, as I know you have. So they said it was dead and it won't work in February. It was a sellout. They said, OK, well, it's a sellout, but the big-name players, when push comes to shove, will pull out. Not a single player pulled out. Not one single player pulled out. And then they said, oh, when we get over there, but they won't take it seriously. It'll be Mickey Mouse. Now we're getting criticised because it was taken too seriously. So there's always someone trying to talk this down, which disappoints me a bit. But I totally understand where the clubs are coming from, and it's clubs and the AFL need to get together to resolve it. And is there a danger of this going the way of Origin? I don't think so, Gerard, because the players yield far more power today than they ever did. And it's a brave club that will turn around and go to their players, you're not going to be involved in this. They won't cop that. They're not going to cop that. They might have copped it. We copped it 15, 25 years ago, not the players of today. So let's work together and make sure that it doesn't get to that, standoff between club and player and everyone else. I know the supporters are invested in all that sort of stuff, but there's learnings to cut. There's no question it was quicker. As Damien said, I don't think any of us anticipated how quick it was going to be. So we learned from all that.
And it was too long at 141
100%.
minutes. Now, Wiedering's injury was 9 minutes, so this equate, seasonally adjusted as 132 minutes. Is a game in February 100 and a bit at the most, I would fancy, and you would still have got all the best bits of it. And we put the percentages up of game time there, and you referenced Toby, who was absolutely effusive in his praise of the experience and wanting to do it again. He played 66% of the match off almost no pre-season.
Yeah. So to a man, Gerard, I would say to a man, they would all put their hand up to play. So this notion of filthiness, that's just not what it was, right? So they would all put their hand up, so much so that Jacob Wiedering, when he was able to get his first breath and his first words, they said, would you do it again? He said, damn straight I would. So that's where it's at. Now we've got to make sure it works for club, for players and for the AFL. And that's the stated aim of everyone at this stage.
Yeah. This reminds me a little bit of Taylor Swift. This is why we can't have nice things. Just be careful. This is important. It's an important part of the landscape that we need to foster and nurture.
Be careful going and tell them they're not playing.
Oh, but
they might get a surprise.
Well, let's bring Zach in. He was part of it. He's been part of a lot in the off-season. A regular here on AFL 360. Will Day has taken up with us as well. Can't take a trick just for the moment, the Hawks youngster. Are you aware of that conversation?
Yeah, I don't live under a rock.
Our club's position is that we will not be trading him under any circumstances.
My job is pretty clear. Make Hawthorn win.
Wouldn't be very good at hide and seek, Mitch, I reckon. Marco Polo. Polo! Marco!
I'm not a body language expert, but it's fair to say I don't think this deal is getting done by the looks of Tom Petroro there.
The reality is now that the gloves are off, ball's fair and love and war.
When you promise a club captain to put himself through this, to this extreme, you've got to come up with a way to get the deal done.
That's the way things work. I mean, if you throw a punch, expect one to come back your way pretty quickly, especially at our club.
Get your tickets to round 1. Essendon and Hawthorn will be spicy.
What you're referring to at the end of last year, does it add spice? Probably.
Friday night is a big date for all sorts of reasons as Essendon and Hawthorn renew hostilities in round 1. Zach Merrett shared so much of this with us. Zach, it's great to have you back on 360. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, guys.
And Will Day was almost a teammate. Will, it's nice to see you.
Good to be here.
Just tonight's breaking news before we delve any further. Were you aware of the Dylan Moore-Connor McDonald's night in a jail cell in Arizona before today?
Yeah, I was aware, yep. And I, as a mate, ahead of a teammate, was just trying to help them through it all and help them sort of get through what they were going through. So, yeah, I was.
It's been costly for Dylan, hasn't it, in particular?
Yeah, I think so. But at the end of the day, it's all out now and he can sort of move on, and he's still a great leader within our club, and I don't think too many people that know him are going to change their view on him as a person.
All right. Zach, do you feel that you're going to be the centre of attention on Friday night? I reckon Brad was only half joking when he said you're probably entitled to a percentage of the gate.
Yeah, well, the boys did joke about that as well, so I might hold Brad accountable to that comment. No, I mean, it's where, not for those reasons, but it's definitely where you want to be. It's why we go through all those hard training sessions in the off-season, and in days when you wake up and you don't want to train, is to be in front of 90,000 at the MCG in round 1. So I'm looking forward to it.
Do you have any trepidation around what the reaction might be?
A little bit. It's just probably such a unique situation that hasn't really happened very often. So all I know is when I'm on the ground, it'll just be a massive loud noise and blur. Obviously, in footy, the G's so big that fans behind the fence, you can't hear explicitly what they're saying. So it'll be a buzz like it normally is when we play Hawthorn or any other big Melbourne club. So, yeah, I'm excited. Looking forward to the game. To have 3 debutants named today as well also adds a little bit of perspective. Being the oldest player on the list now and seeing young kids get the call up, makes it also all the better, and can't wait to get involved with them.
You did live this with us through this position, and you coming back this year is great. Has it been difficult? Would you say it was a difficult period of time?
Yeah, it was definitely difficult, I think, and we don't have all night to go through everything, but I think, there's no doubt I was struggling a little bit in the back end of the year last year personally, trying to find and see the light for where we're going as a footy club and myself, to then get to the point of asking for a trade. That wasn't the hardest part. I think the hard part was all the intensity in the media and probably some narratives or some discussion and points that were made I thought were pretty unfair and probably a fair way from the truth. That was hard to live with, and then seeing how that puts pressure on your family and friends around you was certainly a unique situation I've never been in. So I don't know, it's hard to separate the truth from what's happening around you. And Melbourne's such a footy bubble, which is amazing at times, but also there's that counter on the other side of the coin that is difficult. So, I think it was tough, but I'm pretty comfortable with most of the things that went down, and there's things I certainly learned as well.
So sitting here, we grilled you pretty hard on a couple of nights, and you were adamant that you were going to stay and spend your time at Essendon when you could tell us otherwise. There's clearly some other stuff going on in the background. So that in itself is a difficult position. When you accept, and you kept fronting up to your credit, but you put yourself in a difficult position there.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard when you're the club captain, you're having these constant battles internally around what's best for you and your footy and what's best for the footy club. You want to represent them as best you can. And probably I got to a point, to be honest, that I never thought I was going to reach. I've seen plenty of players and staff before me reach a point they felt they needed to remove themselves from the club and go to a different place. And as I said, I never thought I'd get there. And unfortunately, I did at the end of last year. And that was why those next few months unfolded after a few times we were on this show.
We'll get to where you are now in a moment. But that day on October the 15th, which we've seen some vision there, and Tommy Petroro, your manager, is in the Hawthorn rooms. It's really graphic stuff. It sort of summed the story up about the desperation to try and get you to the Hawthorn Footy Club. Where were you when all this was unfolding? Where were you? Were you there? Were you at home waiting by the phone? Where was your position?
Yeah, I mean, Tom's such a passionate and loyal guy. He was fighting tooth and nail to get the job done, and I was just sitting at home with my wife and my cousin. And sort of watching the Petrarca deal happen and then the Curnow deal, and then it looked like it was going to happen, then it didn't. And then the clock ticked over 6:30, and then pretty quickly you're trying to wrap your head around that you're going back and what that may look like. So, it was a weird time. I had my nana's funeral 2 days later, which was probably the hardest part of that 2-week period. So there's a lot of emotion flowing. Not anger. I think I signed that deal 4 years prior. They committed to me massively. So there was no anger around the decision-making to hold me to the contract. It was more probably a little bit of disappointment around how things had played out publicly and some conversations that had been had behind closed doors that were aired in the public eye. So, there was definitely some disappointment and frustration initially, but you get home, get around my family and friends at my nana's funeral, and then by the time I got back to Melbourne, it was sort of getting my head around going back.
I think what we're all interested in is then what happens next. And we've been in footy clubs, and they're places that I think move on really quickly. That's my history anyway. But a couple of your teammates had some things to say and they were disappointed, which I think is fair enough. I understand that. How do you go about resolving that? How do you resolve the relationship and get this back to a point where you can put it behind you and move on?
Yeah, I think that's probably been the most asked question, those 2 articles that were public. I think that was one of the things that I was a little bit frustrated at the start that was public. I think there was conversations that could have been had behind closed doors. Those 2 boys were understandably frustrated, and understandably, if I was in that position, I probably would be the same, that your captain's looking to explore his options or leave the footy club. So their reactions were fully entitled, I think.
It was Mason Redman and
Nick Martin, yeah. And we caught up off the back of the trade not going through. We had dinner.
How soon after?
On Welshie's card, which was nice. It's probably 2 or 3 weeks later, we caught up with Andy McGrath and Kyle Langford and just talked about everything. They put all their cards on the table around their frustrations, and then I sort of gave them a little bit more context than they probably knew. And I think the learning for me was I should have been more upfront through the back end of the season with how I was feeling and what I felt I needed to do, just to give them more understanding. I think they were sort of sitting there. We obviously spend every day together. We go through a lot of hard times together. I think they felt a little bit in the dark. So, as I said, completely understand their position. For me, it would just be nice to have those conversations behind closed doors.
Can you play with the same passion for Essendon as you have done previously, given all the water that's gone under the bridge?
Yeah, I mean, I still absolutely love and adore the club. I think I talked to this. I think Gaz might have pointed out, how can you love the club but want to leave? I think the club's an evolving beast that is made up of 150 years and so many past champions, staff, volunteers, and 100,000 members every year. So the club isn't individuals. I think for me, the club is this bigger thing. It's 16 premierships, and for me, I'll have the same passion come round one or come Friday night.
I don't think there's having had a bit to do with it. There's not a question in the world about that. There's been a bit of a misrepresentation along the way. I think football's at a stage now where players will continue to explore their options, and whether they do get to where they need to go or whether they don't, it's not for us to have to... We can be disappointed as Essendon supporters, but, I mean, this is the world we live in these days. And I just asked Zach on the way, and you're looking forward to it, and you said you live for it. I mean, you are front and centre Friday night in a great rivalry with a football club who hate each other, and you're going to be in the middle of it. Yeah,
I mean, you play footy to play in big finals and grand finals and big games, and ultimately we're an entertainment sport. The theatre of round one against the Hawks is going to be great, I think, for all fans. Whether you're an Essendon or a Hawthorn fan or you're a neutral fan, I think it's going to be an amazing game, and the theatre around it's going to add a little bit of spice as well, which is great.
Were you thinking for a few weeks that you might have played alongside him?
Oh, there probably was a period where there was, but yeah, I mean, every club would have loved to have someone of his calibre come, and when it doesn't happen, you're just back in the depth that we've started to have at our club, which we're still really confident in that too, so we're excited.
You can't get a run at it. Now that we're a bit emotionally invested in your journey, I imagine... What is the layer of frustration given, what is it, best and fairest 23, and then just haven't had a fair run at it since?
It's been pretty tough. I think after each one, I sort of tell myself, oh, it's the last one, and that's my motivation to keep going, and another one pops up, and this shoulder probably was a bit more shattering because the foot was in such a good spot, which we had worked so hard to get to. So when this one came up, was quite challenging, but I think since then I've found ways to just take a step back, zoom out and have a bit of perspective, and I am in a good spot at the moment mentally, and yeah, really excited to just nail the rehab and get back for the exciting part of the year.
I read some stuff where you got away quickly and you've come to the realisation that footy doesn't define you as a person, which I think can come late for a lot of people, a lot of players, but you've had that revelation already.
That's been a big one for me. I guess I have been so heavily invested in football, as most people in our industry are, but I found that that's great when things are going well, but when different challenges come up, you can fall down a bit of a spiral. So yeah, for me to recognise that now, I mean, ideally I wouldn't have to have if I was healthy, but I think that is one positive that comes out of these injuries, just to gain a bit of perspective, and I think going forward will make my journey better.
The other thing you're doing is getting flying hours up as a bench coach. I'm not sure whether that's something, hopefully it's 10 years down the track, but what did you make of the weekend? We, as on the outside looking in, identified that the chase is so hard for this fella suggests that you needed some shoring up through the middle of the ground, and it looked to be an issue. What on the weekend, especially against an undermanned Giants, how did you read it?
Yeah, we felt as if we lowered our colours in a lot of aspects that we usually pride ourselves on. So our work rate was the lowest it's been in a long time, and although we want to start getting a bit more technical, tactical with the way we play and the way we execute, we still are an effort-based team, and our athletic profile suggests that we should outwork opponents, and we saw on the weekend that when we don't do that, we get what we deserve. So
why do you reckon that's the case? Well, we did your practice match the week before, and it looked a bit sluggish when you put it down to, oh, well, don't read anything in the Community Cup, and then you come out and you were sluggish again.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I wish we knew the answer before the weekend. I think just going back to our DNA, a lot of messaging, you want to try and keep evolving as a team, and I think we found that if we aren't doing what we're best at, you can't keep moving forward at all.
And what are you doing on game day at the moment? Is it the same role or has it evolved for you?
Nah, pretty similar role. So mic'd up to David McKay, our mids coach, and I'll show vision for the boys whenever they need it and just send messages up and down. So, yeah, it's a great way to stay involved. I think I said last time, if I was in the stands watching, I'd be, nowhere. So to feel like I'm still able to influence is really important for me.
So we're not going to hold you to it, but what is the long-term prognosis here? Hawthorn fans are sitting there at home going, give us something to hold on to here.
Yeah, I guess I've tried to not put a figure on it myself. I've found in the past with these longer-term injuries, if all you're focusing on is that round that you think you're back, you can sort of get sidetracked in the short term. So I'm looking at that mid-year by round 14, somewhere around there to aim for, but right now just trying to nail the little intricacies.
Yeah, well, we understand and we wish you well. You watched footy on the weekend. I'm sure you would have had a look at it. Was there anything that you saw that you thought, yep, that's something that we can exploit or you can exploit personally?
Yeah, I think I watched every minute of every game, which was enjoyable as a footy fan, just to have footy back on the TV. I think I was probably obviously playing Origin, but amazed at how quick the ball's moving now. I think with that last touch rule, it's in play so quickly, so hard to set up and defend, and then potentially with a bit of warmer weather to start the year in Sydney probably makes it a little bit harder. But I think the way that the teams are moving the ball now, it's pretty electric, and I think fans will enjoy some more scoring as well.
What was the Origin experience like for you?
Yeah, I think I said it to Gaz in a text, but it was genuinely a dream come true. Growing up in the late 90s, massive Bulldog supporter, had the old VCR tapes, not sure if they're around anymore, but had a lot of old Dogs ones, and the E.J. Whitten image is still firmly in my head. So the importance of Victoria and what the big V stood for from an early age was massive and in my DNA. So to get the opportunity to pull that on, but also the 5-day build-up, spend time with the best players in the comp, to be around Sam, Scotty and Sean Grigg, and then have Gaz pass on some experience and some stories from back in his heyday. It was an incredible 5 days, and I think every player that played would be a massive advocate for moving forward.
The anecdote that you told off air, I want you to share, because Geordie said the boys were filthy about playing too much time. Your experience was a little different.
Yeah, I was itching to get on a bit more. Pre-game, I think Tobes was keen to start on the ground in case the biff started, and I went to the bench. So, no, I think if the game maybe is just a little bit shorter, I think we can keep the intensity up and make sure we deload the risk of injuries. But I think the positives outweigh the negatives anyway, and I think there's 2 other teams that love to be playing as well.
I want to keep it going so blokes like Will Day can get his body right, and in a year's time or 2 years' time, he's also playing. That's the whole idea.
So you would have seen it, but does it whet the appetite for one day?
Oh, definitely, yeah. And obviously being from SA, to be included in that would be awesome. And I think everyone watching really loved it in the football community, and it's definitely something that I'd love to get up for next year.
Cool. So in your triumvirate, it was you, Toby and?
I think it started with Bonds and Nick, and then it was Zach Butters. I'm like, geez, it just keeps going. And it was Sarong, and then it was I think it was Toby, myself, and maybe Paddy Dangerfield. So I was the youngest one in that 3. But it was an incredible experience, and to even just spend time with the WA boys after the game as well was something I think I'll look back on my career with really fond memories.
We'll see you on Friday night. Thanks for being here again tonight. Enjoy the season. Zach Merrett, Will Day, fingers crossed for the rehab periods. Essendon and Hawthorn together Friday night at the MCG. It's already had a huge build-up. Ticket sales enormous. We'll bring it all to you on Fox Footy, the next meeting of the Bombers and the Hawks, with all the history that goes on.
Against the Dogs and against the clock. 50, is it? No, it's not. No. Against the Dogs and against the clock. 50, is it? No, it's not. No. Oh, 50, is it? No, it's not. No.
And in those moments, we know that we're going to get our answer from Reece's end.
Just become a fan in those situations, Gerard.
Ray Chamberlain, welcome.
Good evening, gents. I'm not lying. I was watching that from the couch myself and went, oh, I'm cooked on this one. They're coming at me.
Right, the 4 degrees of stand, which brings us to this moment. So just step us through, because this time of year is all about knowing this is right, this is the level, this is actually wrong, so don't get sidetracked.
Yeah, beautiful. So the first one we're going to look at is from the game up in Sydney, which we have an example with Toby Green and Ginnivan, and a 50-metre penalty is correctly awarded. So in this instance, Ginnivan hits up at the football, will take the mark, and Toby can see where he marks it, and we'll roll it through and show you. There's 2 things that are really important with this one. First of all, he's clearly 2 metres ahead of the mark. There's no reason for him to... He's not trailing with momentum up and you give him a chance to come back. And the other bit is Ginnivan's back on his line of kick. He hasn't rolled off. There's no reason to encroach. Oh, he played on ump. So that's an automatic 50.
Toby knew.
No argument there. We were at this game and this one confused us at the time. So I don't know the answer, but tell me why this was a 50-metre paid against Artie Jones.
Yeah, so we go to the Gabba and it's a different one. So in this instance, this is an incorrect decision. So our umpire needed to run harder and faster and get out and align with where that ball was marked so that it's an easier decision to make when you're in line with the ball.
So he would have thought he went over the...
Absolutely. And particularly because he's in on the angle, Garry, on the 45, it gives you this sort of an optical illusion that you've encroached the mark. He didn't. That's an incorrect decision.
Yep, that's fair too. Lockie Schultz was another one that we looked at and went, what's going on here?
So this is this one's a little different. So it's a bit line ballish, but you'll see with Schultz here, he is never attempting to get to where the mark is. He's in front of where the mark is when the player marks the football, and he's also on the 45 and he just plants his feet. When you're not trailing the oppo in, if you don't get right to the mark, you run the risk because the umpires are going to give you no shade on that. If you've encroached and you don't trail him with momentum behind in the contest, they'll just go bang.
Turn around and get out.
Yeah, correct. You've got to exit. You've got to exit.
And Lockie Schultz should have exited?
Yeah, so you'll see if we roll it back, if we have the chance, the other Collingwood player who's actually trailing up can assume the mark. So
if Schultz turned around and ran straight out, he'd be fine.
No dramas. Absolutely no dramas. He's in the protected area. He has to exit. He's allowed to exit, and his teammate can assume
So if you're coming in at right angles, you've got to get to the absolute spot.
Correct. If you encroach by 2 metres, they'll bang you for 50 every time.
All right, and that brings us to the climax of the Lions and the Bulldogs.
Yeah, and so I want to work through this for a couple of reasons, Jude. So, more than one thing can be true. I know that we sort of had a little bit of ping-pong, and I'd like to work through it. So, in this instance, our umpire gets to the right decision. And an umpire has 3 things they can do here. We'll work through this first, though. So you'll see that, obviously, Zorko took the ball, and we're going to see where the mark is. Now, technically, Dane's got to go back on his line of kick, OK? Now, if he plays on in a direction anywhere other, it's play on. So then there's a question, Gerard, is it momentum? Does he try to run around because he's going fast to win the game because they're trailing? And so one of the interesting things here is Fraser also does cut him off at the pass because he thinks Zorko's played on. Now, our umpire does get to play on. It takes him 3 seconds to get there. Ideally, as soon as Zorko marks that ball and drives off, you call play on immediately. The second option that an umpire, Gerard, has in this set of circumstances, if it gets a bit muddled, the umpire has the opportunity to blow time on, stop the game, get Fraser on the mark. Dane, come around, please. Time back off. Away we go. What we don't ever want there is 50 metres, and I'll explain why. If you say to Fraser, you must stand there and just let him roll through, and he's not on his line of kick, Dane's got an unfair advantage, and we're not asking the player on the mark, although they've got cement boots, to be a matador. Oh, olé, off you go. You just go through the corridor and square the game up. So Dane's or... No, well, so in a way they are, aren't they?
Are you sure of that?
Well, no, in this instance I'm saying I'm absolutely sure.
There's no obligation of Fraser to do what we've been drilled all summer to do and stand the mark.
I led with there are 2 things can be true. You can have played on, which I believe Dane Zorko has done.
Would he have heard the play on, though, Fraser, or has he made that decision?
I think he's probably anticipated it.
I think he has as well, which is fair enough, but it's counter to what we're told. We're told the mark's taken, he has to stand.
He does? Was he called to stand?
Was he called play on?
Neither, which is what I said at the start, right? Ideally, our umpire immediately calls play on and doesn't take 3 seconds to get through it. But what I will say this, Garry, it is opening round. This one sits in the margins. There's a lot happening there.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And he clunked his way through and got to the right result.
And the state of the game suggested that err on the side of not calling it, because it would have been the biggest call of the round.
And if you have to make the biggest call of the round, you have to make the biggest call of the round. But I do think that we want the players to get the outcome of the game.
I feel like we got our best suite of ruck examples from the Giants-Hawthorn game when the second-string rucks were in.
Absolutely, and that's going to send an antenna for the umpires. The first one that we're going to look at is Chol and Riccardi, and a correct free kick is paid here. So this is Swanee's poster-child example of why the line is there. So you'll see here that Riccardi, and we'll roll through it again, Riccardi crosses that centre line. It's a dead straight throw up. It's not an errant throw. He's crossed into Chol's area. Yeah. It's your classic dirty dancing Patrick Swayze. This is my dance space, Gerard. This is yours. And you're not permitted to cross the line and jump from that side. Correct free kick.
Chol's first one?
Yeah, so this one here's been a free kick for 7 years. Okay. And so what will happen is Chol jumps from his side of the line, which is fine. But then he mistimes it, he blocks Riccardi as a result, and he doesn't tap the ball. So that's a clear free kick to Riccardi for a block.
All right, and then a curious Chol.
Yeah, so this one is really reminiscent of when Swanee was in here talking about Pitnet and De Koning. So they both go at it, they both stay on their side, they're both going to leap from their side, and Chol slips his oppo, who jumps from the right side, doesn't interfere with him at all, makes no contact with him. And yeah, he's 1 foot over the line, but they don't want them paying a free kick in that instance. He didn't cross the line and prevent the GWS ruckman from jumping. He didn't interfere with him at all.
Yep.
And so the sole objective of Chol is to contest the football. He hasn't interfered with his opponent. And in line with the Pitnet example that Swanee said they want play on, our umpire called play on.
There was a nice little moment where Rowan Marshall, who knows the rules inside out and backwards, is telling the umpire, come on, hurry up, because they haven't got a ruckman here and I can go.
Absolutely, and this is one of the new rules. And thankfully our umpire knows it too. So the umpire are given an instruction. When they get the nomination, they go, Collingwood ruckman, Collingwood ruckman. They've got to ask them twice. If no one nominates, they go, no Collingwood ruckman, and throw it up. So, yep, Rowan Marshall was all over it. So was Nick Foot.
Maynard, was he...
You're in the stands for this.
I'll tell you what, there was a bit of chat in the stands, Gerard. They went nuts.
What was the consensus? I know what the consensus was.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of black and white around me, Garry. I was very nervous for a couple of hours there, but no. So this is an example where it's not gone 15, and so the umpire's called play on. So a couple of things to think about here. The first one is it's not a mark, so therefore it's not an automatic prior opportunity. You know, when you play on from a mark, it's deemed you've had prior opportunity. That's not the case here. And so you go, well, OK, he's had plenty of time, though. If that was general play and you picked it up and you had that amount of time, that would be considered balanced and steady, a prior opportunity.
What about the fact he should have known it was going to be play on?
So I'm going to ask you a question, if you don't mind.
Please.
So in this instance here, much like if it's touched from downfield and they don't know and the umpires are on balling it up, I'm with you. Do you think he knew?
100%.
Yeah, so you'd be happy with holding the ball?
Yep.
The umpiring...
Well, I'd be happy to know that he would have known it wasn't a mark.
Yeah,
He stopped. Then you can argue semantics on prior opportunity, all that sort of stuff.
Yes.
But he would have known that wasn't a mark.
I think, well, I know what the umpires are instructed in a circumstance like that, much like with touched. If you're adamant, so let's say Maynard's going, it's a mark, and he's blueing with you, and then he gets tackled, you're well within your rights to play holding the ball. But if you genuinely believe he's not clear, they'd prefer to err on not penalising.
So a bit of B-grade acting can actually get you...
Oh, it'll get you a long way in this game.
So I just want to say there were 2 moments late in your game, Gaz, where the last possession out of bounds paid its way, and this is where it enhances the game. Game on the line, it's a frenzy. You used to be able to get some sort of reprieve here, but there's no reprieve to be had anymore. It's going to cost you possession of the footy. So that happens to Neil, and then it happens to Selwood here as well. Is pop it over. Normally, don't get a throw. Nah, you lose the foot. This is going to serve the game so well, and those were the moments when it started to get really hot.
Yeah, I think it was pretty good throughout the round.
And the players know. You see Ashcroft chases after the ball because he's going, if I don't touch that, it's going to be a free kick to the oppo. They know.
All right. Excellent, Ray. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Razor's Edge sharpening us up for how things are in 2026. The season premiere of Midweek Tackle on a busy news night. Lauren, Corbin and Ralphie coming up next. We're very proud of the 360 franchise. AFL 360 dates back to 2010. Summer 360, Cricket 360, NRL 360 is doing great things. Motor Racing 360 premieres tomorrow night. The legend Mark Scaife is in the Garry Lyon role. Jess Yates is the host. Paul Murray will be part of it. And episode 1 wraps everything from Albert Park. And isn't there a lot to wrap? Tomorrow night from 7:30.
2026 is a new year, which means new technology, which means things just change.
Welcome to 2026 footy. They're certainly enjoying it in the crowd there.
A little glimpse behind the scenes at our brilliant callers dominating tonight. They were brilliant.
They were, and they insist that they get some airtime. It's all good till you get punched in the face.
Any advice for Tom before you do farewellers?
Try and get a word in early because it's hard when Gaz gets going.
Straight through the middle, the Giants away now. And Tom Hanks loves it.
Christian Petrarca is a lover of the game. But you're sort of pleased to see him settle into his new home up here and play so well in Queensland especially.
Yeah, rap for him was great. Gerard Whateley's getting excited. Yeah. Got a couple of buttons undone.
The last person I expected the 3 button down from.
That's right.
But,
broken ranks.
Not ideal, the overhead camera on a thinning senior coach. Fighting tooth and nail. You're fighting tooth and nail. Great song. Get on Bandcamp, Western Bulldogs supporters, 99 cents, that's all it'll cost you. You can also order the vinyl for 25. It's gold vinyl. It's a magnificent song.
I said I just want one thing for my birthday. Play the Vision.
So talk us through it.
You talk us through it, Peter Buck.
This is harsh.
Yes.
That is me and my Nutrigrain Iron Man career burning in flames.
I must admit, I'm really looking forward to next year's present, if that was this year's.
Midweek tackle in a few moments' time. So it's too high, this button.
I have to go for the top button too. You can't keep rolling like that.
David Zita with the latest on the Harris Andrews case. David, just tell us what's going on.
Well, we've just finished an hour of Harris Andrews giving evidence, so that just goes to show how extensive this has been. Effectively, he says he was trying to shepherd Artie Jones. He wasn't aware that he was as low as he was when he made connection with Artie Jones. So that's where the bulk of this argument has centred on. We haven't even gotten to the idea that impact should be lowered yet. So this is going to be a relatively lengthy tribunal hearing, you would suspect. So that's where the case sits at the moment. Either way, the Brisbane Lions trying to get it thrown out or downgraded. So far, we're just scratching the surface of what this case is about.
Nothing cuts through like comprehensive evidence from one of the most respected players in the competition.
He's fighting very hard.
Good strategy.
They know how important it is, Gerard. So up against it, but who knows?
All right, we'll find out as the night goes on. See you tomorrow, Gaz. Let's head to the midweek tackle with Lauren Wood.